How much of myself can I dissolve and still conjure entire worlds in my own remains? Stories caught in technicolor detail, the red plunge feel of a kiss, finally collapsing from grey, awkward into the sensory impossibility of feeling where one ends and one begins. A grown man walks his bare feet, knotted from urgent running, pale from endless winter, down a long stretch of carpet saved from an ancient palazzo, dusty with forgotten lives, weeping and laughing with every step, with every rough scratch tickle on feet. I remember, he marvels, I remember as he lets his bare feet travel textural landscapes of history, whispering stories upwards through angular metatarsals and sinew and cartilage and fascia. Banished sensations returning to the body, his heart cracks its shell and the tiny soft bones of the bird press themselves hard against white walls, leaving no smear, as all their gentle might seeks the air beyond the borders. A tiny damp bundle of life that tips over the cracked edge, falling. The wings do not open. We don't all fly the first time. But in the plunge to earth between shell and rug, a hand opens, caught. Here I will make my nest, carried. I will feather my wings, held. I will lengthen my bones, be held. I will teach you what it takes to fly. The man and bird travel, roads and paths and moonlit meanderings, until one day, in a sudden moment, like a shift of sunlight through tree shade, the bird is gone. In flight, in sky, in numbers now, in a twisting, curling smoke of birds, in a flock of roaring flight, a dense liquid form that morphs through horizons as oceans, and the hand feels an emptiness it had forgotten, a weightlessness it had forgotten, a solitude it had forgotten again. And the hand drops, a requiem to falling, and the man walks alone. Trailing patterns on sand, on stone, on clay, on wild flowers. So many seeds will die in the ground, never to rise, their husks falling, microbial mouthless absorption into earth. Something else can grow in your bones. His head lowered now, his eyes can catch the shape, still warm and rounded, the colour still bright, the claws still firm, the elegant stretch of leg waiting to be tucked, but the eyes are already empty. Is this his or some other? It's hard to know, this soft, dead bird on the hard asphalt road, a form made to be cradled. He isn't ready to let it go, to let it be. The form placed in salt, not in hand now. Preserved instead, cured, suspended.
We've invited everyone today for the closing of this show of a recent series of paintings by Trek Valdizno at Gallery Duenila. We are in the presence of Ms. Silvana, Diaz, and the artist Trek Valdizno, and a group of very good friends. And I'll start off with Katya Guerrero, and then Ringo Bunoan, and RM De Leon. And with us from home is Jonathan Olazo. My name is Sandra Palomar. I am not just a good friend, but also the batchmate of Trek Valdizno from the UP Diliman College of Fine Arts. We were together for a good 4 years in fine arts school, majoring in painting, and I think all of us graduated from the same alma mater. Perhaps that's one thing that brings us together, here, apart from the fact that when Trek started, really pushing his career as a full-time artist, I think all of us were also following his work. I got lost for a few years, but reconnected with Trek even though we were apart, and I was apart from you for at least 2 decades. Somehow, I feel nothing has changed. Trek is still painting the same way he was painting when he was a student. And maybe that's one of the things I'd like to hear from his friends. How do you find his work after 30 years of practice? Tama yan?
Yes. Maybe the same perseverance.
And this is the 4th solo show that Trek has had with Gallery Duenila. Of course, he's had a lot of other solo shows in other spaces, but it must be recognized that Silvana is one of the very few who have supported Trek from very early in his career. Yeah.
And I finally found a home in Duenila as an artist.
Well, we love you and love Ariel.
Excuse me.
I love you, I said.
And I wouldn't be here without Aaron because Aaron introduced me to Silvana.
That's true. Yeah.
Because I'm a nice guy.
First and foremost. And Aaron helped me make it through during my struggle years.
Oh,
when I was in the
I did?
Yes, you did.
always
Aaron was
enjoy.
selling my small works on paper through his friends, through his rich friends.
Okay.
Remember, I cannot forget that.
So you were already selling as early as college days?
I think during the college days.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And you were already with the gallery in the early 90s. You were already exhibiting with
I was very much
Gallery
around during
Manila.
those years.
Yeah. I was kicked out everywhere, so I looked for other galleries. And then I also found a home through Silvana's graciousness. And I had to share the joy with my friends because I cannot do it all alone. It's tiring to run your day.
Yeah.
On alone.
Yeah.
Jonathan is also represented by Galleria Dormida, correct, Jonathan?
Well, he has other gallery that he also received like anybody else. Yeah.
How?
But we always showed together, the
Yes,
three of
yes,
us.
yes.
And there were additives like Ronald Achocoso,
Yeah.
Raul Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Why is that? What brought you together? Is it because of friendship, or is it also because of your styles of working, painting?
First and foremost, I think it's friendship because with friendship, it becomes easier to convince them to join in. And then, respect for the works. Yeah. And therefore, for their perseverance with their concerns.
Si Katya and Ringo are actually younger than us, right?
Really? I thought you were
Correct.
classmates.
No,
You're not classmates?
much younger.
Younger batch.
How much younger?
90s. We entered UP in the mid-90s.
And see,
Ako
Trek.
88.
Yeah, a little bit younger.
And you?
Oh,
Okay.
I forgot.
Jonathan,
I
ikaw,
know.
anong year ka pumasok?
87 years.
87.
There is one batch ahead ako with Trek, actually. I think. Tama, Trek, no?
That's right.
One batch.
One batch ahead pa kayo kay Jonathan.
No.
One batch ahead
Si
ka.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Oo.
Trek, younger sa akin. He's siguro mga batch 89, tama? Or
88.
88.
Yeah.
And you were 90s. 1990.
Yeah. So both of you were under Chanel.
Well, that's the person who brought us all together.
Yes.
One other commonality, I think, among all of us is that we were mentored by Roberto Chabet.
And we met most likely through exhibitions.
Yes.
Working together in exhibitions,
A lot of installation.
hanging out together during the group shows, things like that.
And I even live with Katya for a while.
I don't really remember the circumstance, but really that was.
Yeah.
But I remember that. But Trek is considerate, correct?
Yeah, I can see it.
That's why I know people were very
He's
considerate.
very, he's very, he has a very warm and
Very mother-like.
mother-like personality. But actually, I think I met Trek actually through Popo. And I think Popo was really another magnet, di ba? Parang he had his own group and they were super, very, very, parang very warm, di ba? Oo.
Pardo, Keka,
Yes, Keka,
John,
Francesca Enriquez.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
So,
Jen.
Jen.
so yeah.
Because I'm also hanging out with some senior, not so senior, but older rocks.
I also saw you in that,
Not-
right?
But with Agnes,
He's much older.
Yeah.
Agnes and
Yeah.
Dana Rally, and Jerry.
Jerry's older than you. Jerry's older than you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we were hanging together.
Yeah.
But I think in the Chabet group, it doesn't really matter what
Yeah.
batch you are or what. I mean, everyone gets along.
It's very near the
Everyone
ground.
can talk and
Yeah.
have a drink in the same room, and so yeah, it's not so much. We're not so much like old or new or
No, actually, at a certain point, I think age doesn't matter anymore.
yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's the idea and the excitement and the art and what's going on that keeps the bunch together and what's going to happen. And since there was a lot of installation, it was something so new.
Yeah.
This brought so many of you together.
Yeah.
And then more gallery came out.
Yeah.
So that also, before there were few, in my time when I started,
Before we were just in Mega Mall.
no, in the mall was after.
Yeah.
Before we were only Makati.
Yeah.
In the 70s was Makati and Makati. That's what there was at that. Then they spread. Yeah.
I'm just going to ask Jonathan, how is our sound? Can you hear the entire conversation? Are we speaking loud enough?
Yes,
Thank you.
it's very good.
So what put everybody together at one point in time was because there were exhibitions to put up. There were exhibitions to attend.
Yeah.
There were also artist friends that needed the support. For example, you said that you wanted to try to sell more of your paintings, so another artist would come and introduce you to galleries. Silvana just said that,
And I was not selling on the galleries during the time when Aaron helped me. So some of others.
may commission ka ba dun?
Wala kasi mura lang.
Sorry,
He was selling my
May commission pa ako doon. Wala. Ngayon, maniningil ako.
He was selling it for 1,000.
Now I'm gonna ask for a commission. This is sold out.
But it's interesting to hear from Silvana that galleries also somehow had phases, where they were at one point in a very chic spaces in Makati, and then they had to move. And there was a point where right after graduation or leaving the school, the galleries were not in big spaces in the middle of a business district, but in the middle of a mall. And that was the 90s. And then today, actually because most of the galleries have also somehow broken apart and gone back to their own spaces, what we can see in the Manila art scene is galleries are somewhat in different communities. and perhaps with a good balance. Kasi if you live in Makati, there are galleries to visit. If you live in Quezon City, there are spaces to visit. So can we say that there are a lot more opportunities open to artists today to be able to, like, in comparison to how Trek did it, no? He sold paintings through friends. Now can we just go to a gallery and present work and actually create, be full-time? What do you think? How is our position now after almost 3 decades of knowing the arts?
Well, I as a gallery, I think today a lot of artists can support themselves. Some other artists cannot yet. So depends the preparation of the public. But there are a lot of interest in the arts now, maybe because there has been also a lot of crisis, of monetary crisis, and a lot of people have recognized that one of the great investment is in the arts. Then I must say that there have been a lot of, with the auction houses, has brought also, this kind of tension and excitement, and is good or bad. There are both sides in this kind, without any doubt, but they have accumulated a great interest because of this fluctuation of the money going up and down. You know that they are very, very much more sophisticated than before. They are not, because the majority of the auction houses really chooses what sells in the market. Not what, if you bring them a painting and they think there is no market, they will not show.
It's an American Idol thing.
Yes, yes.
It's a case of death.
Actually,
for the artist, it's a case of death.
I mean, yes, it's true, but like everything in life, like she was saying, the gallery before we were in Makati, and one of the great frustration of gallery is that people were not going into the gallery.
Because
they were not going. Art, they did not even know what was a gallery.
Yeah.
They will not even ask questions, and you will go to them and you say...
They were intimidated.
Well, because they did not... Okay, when you talk about the figurative art, that up to today the public is very much will invest more. In an abstract art, what's happening? The people look at it and they say, what do I see? I don't see a face, I don't see a flower, I don't identify. So this care of not understanding, they are so used to the meaning, I need to understand what I see, that an abstract artist, like let us say we take at the time the Aguinaldo, or we take also at the time like Olazo, they really had hard time. H.R. Ocampo, Legazpi, I saw exhibit, they did not even say one word. So it took time, and then the Saturday group also collaborated a lot in this. And also another great gallery was the one of what's her name? Not the guy the one of Calao, Sinica Malik, and collaborated a lot to make Filipino art known. You see, so, and then galleries started to come up. People started to sell. The idea of Vita Serena, that she told me up about the mall, why it was at that time why many galleries accepted it. To the pure fact that we were all together, there were restaurants here, from every kind of society, they could see the art, that they will understand, they will not understand, but your eyes start to get used to a certain aesthetic. So for me to see street children sometimes coming in and actually there were more the children asking questions than the older one. So for me to have it to do with the full public of every strata of society was an interesting factor. that was not so much about the mall because it was very heavy. It's 7 days a week. It's from 10 to 9 o'clock at night and sometimes even 10 midnight. But this has brought people continuously to see art. But before, it was an impossible thing. They didn't even know what was a
That's a good
museum.
introduction.
It was terrible before. You will cry. People did not know what was an art gallery, not a museum. A museum? I don't think they knew what was a museum.
It's interesting what you say about the galleries reaching out to the general public by putting themselves in more public spaces, no? And which I see in the approach of Trek Valdizno to choose to actually go back to Bulacan, because after UP Diliman, he could have stayed in Manila, but he went back home to Bulacan and he practices there since, no? And my personal experience of visiting Trek in his studios, and some of our audience here will notice that when we show, for example, the landscape of Bulacan, there is nothing. There is no art scene there. He lives among the community, and what is interesting is that his artworks have become common to his neighbors. His neighbors who are not an art-going public are actually perhaps more knowledgeable about the forms that Trek does. No? And perhaps maybe segue to this question: the forms, the technique, the practice in general of Trek. A while ago, I think I also saw a certain commonality among all of us. Perhaps it is that relationship we have to not only modernism but to abstract, to abstract art. A few of us have, like myself, gone even deeper, perhaps in its relation with conceptual art. But these are good friends, I think, and I think Silvana has supported abstraction a lot among very few galleries in Manila. Galleries in Manila support that. So, maybe hear it from, say for example, Jonathan. Speak about how is our relationship, maybe your relationship to abstraction as an artist. You cannot hear.
Jonathan?
Jonathan,
I'm just
what is your relation to abstraction?
I don't know.
That's a very hard question. So, nag-iisip trying to think of an answer. Maybe si Aaron muna can say something about him and his practice of abstract work.
Yes.
Check muna, check.
Ng trabaho mo sa abstraction.
Actually, hindi ko rin alam yung abstractions in the first place. When I entered UP, ang alam ko sa art, what I know from the art is the landscape painting, the painting of human forms. That's what I know about the paintings. I didn't know that there's an abstractions. I didn't know that abstractions will lead me to, a more enjoyable painting activity, which I happen I like it. Begin to like it.
Why do you like it more than figuration?
I think I have more freedom and, going to different modes or different processes. And at the same time, coming up with something abstract or, non-figurative.
Yeah, but let's say your neighbors in Bulacan and they see your work. What do they say? What do they think?
I think they begin to have this personal aesthetic about paintings, about what I was creating or what I was doing at that particular time. So they also get fascinations about that art can be like this, not the usual art that we used to conceive like the human forms. So, but still they find it related about abstractions. They can see, they begin to imagine that Sometimes my paintings are coming out like beginning to look like an insect or a flower or an animals or something.
So they're still trying to
They
find a figure in
yes,
it,
yes,
you
yes.
know.
They're all still.
I guess it's a way for them to understand
Mhm.
the work.
Or to connect with the work. But it's interesting already what Trek said, that he never had a notion of abstraction. And perhaps today, can we consider that Trek is not even an abstract artist? He is actually a landscape painter. And what we have here are magnifications of the landscape. No? And if we were to put them all together, perhaps then we would see something figurative. But otherwise, they're just perhaps parts of his reaction to or sensations of the landscape.
Could be.
Possible ba?
Imagination.
Like you're telling me like an option could be like this is a magnification of a bigger thing which is a landscape. I mean, yeah, I guess I can understand.
Or it's like more like energy. Like you can also think of it as energy that you find in nature. So, because, yeah, I
And
mean,
my attractions to the nature.
yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I've always associated Trek with something organic forms.
Elemental.
Yeah, elemental. Yeah, I think energy could be a good thing because it also, I think, translates visually. The amount of like the actions are very apparent in his work, like the scratching, the scraping, the smudging or coloring. So I think energy for me, it kind of relates also and also to the nature.
That's true.
Actually, when I first met Trek, well, not first time I met, but the first time I wrote about your work, which was one of the earliest writings I did, actually, was in Trek. And it was your show at CCP. And it was about water.
Yeah, the
And
bodies.
then it was sheets of glass, mirrors. Basta it was objects. So my first encounter with Trek is not as a painter,
As an installation.
but as someone who works with objects. But the ideas were already there. It was reflections of water, things like that. That's what I remember. Such a long time ago. CCP Small Gallery.
Because there's more money now in his paintings than in his installations.
No, like me, I would go very often to RM,
Huh?
and you guide me.
I guided you?
You guided me, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, these are all my niceties, but I hardly said.
Doesn't mean anything. As I said before, doesn't mean selling that you are a good artist.
Excuse me?
Doesn't mean that if you sell, you are a good artist.
Yeah, but
The mere fact that the gallery is interested in your work, it means that, like me, I'm very happy to take a challenge.
Okay, I'll have a show.
Yes, that's what I told you. And when I will ask him, he will ask me, because also he doesn't want to be alone, too much work, because we have to gallery. He said, let's make a group show. So I said, okay, you will be the one in charge of the group show. And so he has been a great help for the gallery. And he has invited artists, friends that I then I have discovered and come to like. So for me, it was a very essential partner.
Well, I've invited John Puison for you for your coming shows, and Chris. I've initiated talks with Chris Villanueva. Yeah, I think they're very interesting today because of the work they do. Well, anyway, going back, ako personally, when I first met Fred, I was astounded by his object pieces. I don't know if you remember that. Those black balloons that he placed at the center like at the center of the mega mall, the biggest
The art center.
the art center, and then he placed the bangka in the middle of the pearlized looking balloons, black balloons that resembled like a magnified black pearls, wherein you could see a bangka in the middle or a raw wood. And then there's this snake that was loosely just roaming back and forth.
A real snake.
A real snake inside the bangka. That to me
The
was...
snake died after the show. For exhaustion. Because I need to, take this
Yeah, it was a black and yellow stripe.
Yeah, just like the
It's a
owl
python.
that we borrowed one time for
The owl that I borrowed from
For Yason.
for Ronald,
Yeah,
from Ronald.
from Ronald.
For Jason's.
For Yason's.
So these are the kinds of works that really made me look hard at what Trek was doing.
Yeah.
And he had this, plus his sleight of hand when it comes to drawing. It's like, what do you call that, this thing that the children's play with plastic, that you can draw and erase it by
Magic slate.
Yeah, the magic
yeah.
And the-
Trek had that bravura in him where he could draw something beautiful, erase it in an instant, and do something again that will make it just look.
Yeah.
So constructing and deconstructing.
There's a series I made, a show that was very much inspired by his works, when I realized that he was targeting the edges of the surface and not the center. So, and I thought it was very interesting to, how should I say, put my attention to the study of using the edges instead of the center, which was normally
How you start.
the thing.
I'd like to take that word, edge, or limits, into focus with certain of the paintings here. For example, just the ones over there, with the blue background. And as I look at a lot of these old drawings, what everybody is amazed are the forms. Okay? Parang siyang object na rin, painted on paper. However, with these paintings now, he goes the other way around. Questions, perhaps, what Trek is always trying to do is, how do I find that edge? How do I show that edge to my audience? So here, I could see that his process was the dispersion of the paint, letting the colors just decide on their own where they will go, and then his last touch will be what usually we would work on in traditional painting, the background.
And I will decide the appearance by
And then the background, thanks to its edging of these color grounds, creates the form. And this is where we find Trek again in his objectivity. Because yun nga, malakas rin yung kanyang handle ng objects.
So you mean to tell me your forms are created when you decide on the background?
yeah.
It's like a reverse. It's like
But not all cases, not all the time.
No, it's not for.
There's some particular paintings that
So the background actually defines the object.
it's like a negative positive drawing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people would probably wonder, how come Trek has stopped doing these objects? I want to ask that question also to Jonathan. Jonathan sometimes does sculpture, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Still.
installation.
Integrated.
Yeah.
These works are 3D
Yeah, 3D.
at this point. Most of
Yeah.
these works. Tama ba, Jonathan?
Jonathan, medyo ba sayang na hindi tinuloy ni Trek yung kanyang mga installations? Sana ba ginagawa rin niya yun ngayon? Instead of just focusing on painting?
I think he's still doing yung sculptures pa rin na, still. He had an exhibition mga 2 years ago. Tama ba?
Where? At the drawing room?
No, with Yola.
I think so.
These were chairs.
Chairs. Those are chairs. I think there was a thematic there.
Yeah, stone and metal. That is.
Yes. Mga metal objects. I see them once in a while sa mga galleries, yung mga sculptures na yung mga metal.
Pero Jonathan, do you think he should go back in doing objects?
Maybe he can work on them simultaneously. I mean, he can. It's not necessarily that he has to focus on one. I think may siguro yung like Sandra, he does things simultaneously, but parang tuloy-tuloy lang yung process na gano'n. So, it's hard to compartmentalize, maybe, but the way si Aaron and Trek are working, so it's very difficult for artists to be, nowadays, unlike before, naalala ko parang to focus on something na parang one look, and so I think yung generation of artists are more, hindi naman pluralistic, but I think mas welcoming maybe to various mediums or media that they can do. So,
Ako personally, nakaka-miss na makakita ng mga hindi bentable. Sige na, sabihin na. Hindi ko na nalimiss yung ganun trabaho na hindi nyo talaga maintindihan kung bakit nangyari.
I really miss our group shows before at the art center curated by Chabet, because of course the market was completely different then. But we basically just did whatever we wanted, whether it would sell or not. It was not really the point.
Playground.
Yeah, it wasn't really the point of doing the exhibition wasn't necessarily to sell, but basically to experiment, to do things. There was a lot of freedom at that time, and I also like how Chabet would do it, because for Chabet it doesn't matter where, if you're painting, you're doing collage, you're doing installation, he can put it all together and it would look okay. It's not like just all painting or all installation. So it's not really, like what Jonathan said, you don't have to be compartmentalized. And I think anything can sell, right, Silvana?
Actually, what I see a lot is that a lot of your experimental installation, a lot of designers, when they do their window design, or even they make their houses after, they really are inspired by very avant-garde design installation that maybe the public is not aware, but in their houses there are some designers that are really, using this. And so that's why I see more and more in very modern architect and modern design that this experiment that all of you have been doing or did has brought fruitful, rendering and a learning in the visual and aesthetic. Because if you see around yourself today, the country, when I came here in the 71, people were only dressing up in brown. They have no color whatsoever. The houses were all very dark, like they were in Switzerland instead of in a tropical country. There was no color. But all of these young artists, experimental artists, who came out, who started to come out, and everybody wrote, everything wrote. The whole society today, we have beautiful window, beautiful houses, and all is a process because artists like all of you has been experimenting and brought the public to a realization that really there is art in all of this because many people could not see. And also I think that thanks to Mega Mall, even if our retrospective is a mall, but it's a mall where everybody passes.
Yeah, it made art public.
And it made not only art public, but the visual. Because schools here don't bring children to museum.
Yeah.
School here don't teach you the thinking process of art. That's why he said, I did not know about art. This is due because in school he was never taught about art. Then UP has taught when you are already in school. But in other culture, you are already brought forward to art, at an early age.
Yeah.
My mother, I remember, she could not understand many times the abstract. But I remember the futurists because they were so unusual. And they were not exhibiting, they were not in a gallery. They were just in places where summertime people will go in vacation spot, like you go to Baguio for summer. So you have this exhibition. You go to winter sport, skiing, you have exhibit because they had a field where they could sell also their exhibit.
Yeah.
So except for an elite of connoisseurs, because even in Italy, galleries, there were not that many when I was young. A museum were darts. So this has been a force that will start rolling all over the world and more with a computer.
Yes, it's interesting. We can say that essential is the space, and the space that accommodates all types of public. So before it was a secure gallery like this one we're in, the white cube, and then afterwards the commercial spaces, just like in malls. Today, there is internet. So we ask ourselves, where are these new spaces where we can actually feel free? Where we will one day actually even see again, not just paintings of Trek, but objects as well. Can we feel positive that there are spaces that exist like that today?
For me, like one of my things, we've evolved a lot. There's been more exposure perhaps, but the idea of public art and the how we prioritize sculpture in this country is still really
Very
behind.
Yeah,
So for me, because there's been attempts for artists to really venture into public art, but it's never really become well established, and like really meaningful. It's usually just like, oh, let's put someone's bust, or it's not. It's really token and nothing really that comes from an artist perspective. And I know many artists, I'm sure including Trek, would be very interested in public art that they feel, really comes from them. It's not just like someone told you what to do.
Yeah. One thing that the gallery is able to touch are consultants who consult collectors, or not necessarily directly collectors, but they actually work with other middlemen, such as designers, and these designers bring the paintings and the artworks to a more public eye, if not within still a private space. So what we can say is today there are, which one of in a previous talk that we had earlier for the show in tandem with this exhibition, one consultant said that as long as there are walls to hang paintings on, yes, we can expect that art will continue to sell. So with the construction boom, and still we know that there are a lot more construction happening around the metropolis, it's good for the painters. Public art, yes, meaning public art that is bought by the government, perhaps that definitely needs needs improvement. But how about what we usually would call alternative spaces? These spaces where you actually come across art because an artist is just selling it or was invited haphazardly. If I may speak about my experience living in a place as small as Dumaguete City, there are so many artists there, but how do they survive without galleries, proper galleries? They actually just sell, hang their paintings in restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my question now. Perhaps artists, are they being more, shall we say, accommodating? That their art doesn't necessarily have to be in a white room, or doesn't necessarily have to be sold through a gallerist with a certain commission, but they can actually just go straight to the collector. And thanks to social media, internet, what's going to happen to the halls or of art that we were used to? What's going to happen to the gallery?
Personally, I guess that's where the promoters of art comes in, like the gallery owners, the entrepreneurs. It's a mixed bag of politics and everything by which the entrepreneurs will have to go to sponsors, because everything is going into the way of the creative.
So it's still important to have
Yes,
galleries.
Managers of the arts or
And spaces.
arts management people, because they will be the one who will connect the businessman to the artist, because personally I believe that you are in a safer place right now if your mindset is veered towards the creativity. It's packaging, it's representation, and it will go the way of it will enter the public spaces while you maintain the halls of the galleries and other more spaces like the internet.
For me, why the gallery are necessary, or to have art manager, whatever you want to call, or art director, curator. Why? Because when you have exhibition that is like internet or like Sandra was saying, here and there, you can put some painting, no more wall. But why the wall are necessary? Because if I want to see the evolution, the maturity of an artist, when I look at the internet, after some time, after I don't have a big video, I will not see it.
It's flat.
It's flat. But if I want to see a real, how the artist has developed through the years, if I'm a real collector, of course, then I think that a one-man show is very important. Group shows are also very interesting, very important, because you see the development. But one-man exhibit, and eventually, if ever it's possible in a lifetime, a real to goodness retrospective, because many times people call retrospective, but they are not really what is a retrospective of an artist. Because an accumulation of work does not make a retrospective. There has to be evolution from the time. So the gallery or a museum, but we are ahead of museum, you see, because the museum comes in after the artist has developed as an artist. It is gallery who are at the forefront of the avant-garde to the public.
Yeah.
So auction houses, you see an array of paintings, but you don't see the development of the paintings.
May I suggest then that I see, when I heard from Ringo earlier, artists find freedom in temporary spaces like the art center. Yeah. It was not necessarily a gallery space per se because it was just temporary for a group show or even for a solo show. But you could do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so this is perhaps what we still need today. That the artists are provided not just a gallery for a selling show, but a space where they can just not be told what to put, what to do, what to present. As for the galleries, perhaps what the galleries need are better relations or perhaps even opportunities to actually bring their artists like Trek to an institutional level where you can actually present an artist not just to the few collectors but to the general public.
And that's what I meant when I said that that's where the sponsors come in.
Yes.
The money people,
We need money to do that.
yes, who can sponsor and promote these things because,
Education.
yes, education, because
It's very difficult with a client there.
everything is going into the way of the creatives.
Yeah.
Whether it be computer or BPOs or di ba? Even the way you market your product, you package it, the color, the form, where you put it out.
I agree. Pero masasabi ko to, maraming possible na sponsors dyan. Nasaan yung structure?
Not so easy.
Not so easy also, di ba?
What do you mean by structure? Where's the place?
Yes.
Oh, the place can be had easily.
But then,
Because these people, these sponsors,
yes.
they have the
But
place.
the thing is that the people who will actually be taking care of these artworks that should be brought into posterity, is that structure available to us today? Are these structures available? Are there enough structures like this?
It can be available. I mean, take a look at Banksy. It's made available for, the world has made a space for Banksy.
Well, interesting because Banksy
Banksy was just on the road.
That's
Now
what
Banksy is in the auctions, in the museums. He even shreds his own painting so that nobody can edit.
Pero, let's make it clear, he's actually more on the internet. And that
Also,
perhaps is the structure that we're talking about today. He's basically living off the internet.
Yes.
That kind of
Yes.
work is
Yes.
living off the internet. Without the internet, there wouldn't be Banksy.
Yeah.
But I'm talking in a more inclusive ideology.
Okay, so challenge question. Not only to the galleries, but to the artists here in the room. Jonathan, kasama ka dyan.
O si Jonathan naman.
Do you even bother to think how your artwork is represented online? Is it important?
It is.
Like for example, being in that virtual gallery now that is what is available to our audience right now because they can't be here with us. Are the challenge that their artworks are just going to be seen virtually? And do you believe that they will find non-flatness? They will find it interesting?
I think there are certain works that will be appropriate for online. But then there are certain works that really need a physical space. Me personally, I need a physical space. I need to see the work, smell the work, see how big it is, and have a real sense of the work. But then now there's more and more things happening online which can be interesting. Although there's NFTs and all these things, although I'm not so convinced about those things, but it's a possibility, and no, it's a reality. It's a reality. We have to deal with the online world, and it was just accelerated this past 2 years. Everyone was sort of like forced to work online, to do things online. So it is a space. It is a form of space, but I think it's not just about I take a picture of my work and put it online. I think we can do more than that. I mean, that's the very basic thing. You take a picture of your work and put it online. But that's just at the surface level. Hopefully, there'll be an artist who can really use it, the idea of a virtual space, as part of the work. But right now, I haven't seen that that interesting thing happening. Right now, it's just really documentation online. But it's a start. Let's see how. But it's also very difficult in the Philippines because internet access is still very spotty. Not everyone is online. People have no signal. I mean, so it's
The children have to share their
tablet,
internet time with their parents.
Yeah, so it's not yet there. We're not yet there, but
Or perhaps we will never be.
No, maybe not me, but I think.
We will never be because it appears that Trek will continue painting until the end of his days. You will still be holding a brush. I think.
True.
True.
I have no other choice but to enjoy what I have.
It's not a choice you're giving yourself, but you will always be painting in Bulacan. Correct?
Precisely.
And in Bulacan is your primary audience, your neighbors.
so he should show
Or
them.
maybe you can make a good there in the space. You have a huge bodega there.
You should run an alternative space.
Actually, when we
I always have a clients. I'm an audience every day. Like my neighboring kids usually visit my studio.
Yun na yung classroom.
what we did once with Romina, she made the children do what do you want to be. So everybody wanted to be a model. So I have a lot of magazines, so they cut out their images. There were 12 children, they cut out their images, they put their head on the top, and then they make the background. And then Romina made huge tarpaulin. And we hung the tarpaulin all over that road outside. Huge. So when the children would come home from school, they were shocked because their own creation was all outside there. So twice we made an exhibit where we have not the gallery and the street. I don't know if you came here.
I saw that.
Yeah, living in Lori.
Yes, yes.
Yes, so we combine with community and the artist. We work together. Yeah, so it was, that's when we brought art. And actually, we could do something like this. Again, you could make tarpaulin, and I asked my neighbor if I can hang it on the wall. What it would be very nice. I mean, if you want all this, anytime the children there come inside the gallery and look at the work.
Are you
No, it's just an idea that's coming out of my head when you say free spaces, bring the children, because really the future.
collaborating with the children aspect, you mean?
No, you can do your painting and then you make it what the children can be essential part of creativity, and then we can make big tarpaulin and put it out in the community, and they can also come inside and look at the show. It is community based. I mean, if we really want, because one day these children will be the artists of tomorrow.
Yes. Can I also say, Silvana, that Gallery Romina has been here in Pasay, in this house,
Yeah.
for the longest time.
87.
And perhaps
87.
it will be here for another,
Till I live only.
Yeah. So
When I die, it will be over because nobody
Will take over.
My daughter is in Flores, doesn't want to go. No, my two children, nobody wants to take over. Except I don't find somebody who will really, because I give myself maybe 10 more years. I don't think I will go more than that.
So we should start talking now. That way we could continue something for you.
You can?
He will take
You
over.
manage the gallery?
Probably with Ringo.
She tried already.
I don't know, running a gallery is something something else.
Yeah.
And I think like some artists will, it's easy for them. Like there are a lot of galleries owned by artists, like West Gallery. Some artists can do it, but it's not for all artists to do. Yeah.
I want to ask a question then, because I remember even you, Sandra, worked with textile before, right? Like kind of going into this idea of design, marrying art and design also within your own personal. Like si Trek, because I know Trek also, dabbled in many things like jewelry, right? That was the last thing that you were
What is wearing?
fascinated with. I mean, you have a fascination for this little, let's say jewels, or gems and stuff like that. I mean, I'm just curious to ask, and also it just happens to be that both of you also came from the same batch. I mean, do you find some fulfillment also doing a work that is more design based?
Definitely. Well,
Like, let's say the idea of functional, like it's not like just a painting on a wall.
as
It
long
has
as
a
I
function.
find pleasure while doing it, I think it's for me. So,
Functional pleasure. Perhaps, para we can drop the stigma about fine art being non-functional.
Yeah.
You know?
It has a function.
It has a function, and perhaps that function is the pleasure function.
Give pleasure.
Yes, of course. That's also, that's also part of it, the experience, the pleasure.
I love function. I like art in any aspect. In fact, you see my gate?
Yes, no, that's wonderful.
map.
I saw the second one today and I was
Yeah.
like, that's wonderful.
And then you
Second
see
one.
the sculpture, and
Yes.
also for the letter that you
Yes,
put
the
in mail.
letterbox.
Why did I do that?
Yeah.
I commissioned an artist to do that because even if you look on the top there, why? Because when the interior designer comes inside here,
Yes.
and my garden is full of sculpture, to make the people is that be creative in your house. Don't be always the same all the time. Ask artists to do your gate, to do your mailbox, to do whatever, chair, table, what has been done through the century.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to be able to look out and to see a piece of art.
Yeah. No, it's really a statement piece. Yeah, it's
Everywhere there are many pieces that I particularly enjoy. It's like the game, they go from this one to the other one, at least we have found object.
Yes.
A lot of metal, of construction. I did it to Roberto Robles and in a beautiful black gate.
Yeah.
With that whole statement.
Yeah. I think there should just be more of it.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what I try to inspire people. But they're still extremely conservative. Except, that's what I say to some great architect and design. They have the power to teach their buyer that are extremely rich to try to make a challenge.
Are you successful?
Sometime I am. I have to tell you that I was successful with some designer.
How about the issue between canvas and paper?
This I have a
That's
problem.
basic.
I'm sorry to say that this has been a challenge that up to today is really difficult. Why? Because the weather is changing.
But as a curator, as a gallery owner,
I have plenty.
you are in a position to educate your clients
Oh, yeah.
about you're buying art, not the paper and not the canvas.
Of course, of course, of course.
So how do you
Very honestly, no matter how much I offer, how much I try, I must say that I've not yet succeeded victoriously on this.
Because as an artist, if you're going to ask me, I will never price my work better because it's on canvas or it's on paper. A work is a work.
Of course.
Whatever amount I put of work I do on canvas is the same amount I would do on wood, on brass, on metal.
Without any doubt. But we live in a society that unfortunately is not yet so mature. And
Sophisticated.
Well, mature more than sophisticated.
So, where do you come, how can you come in as a gallery who should be very aware of this for them to be convinced
I
that
think you have to need not only gallery, but you need a museum, lectures. You need continuously to educate your public. You see? And that's what I took anytime there were seminars, how to preserve paper. So what I do when I sell some artwork, that's why I encode everything. I have a database with almost 17,000 artwork.
should institutions like auction houses be able to project this to...
They should, but they're not prepared.
I doubt.
Don't have that.
I doubt you can ask them from auction houses whose primary mission is to
Sell.
sell.
Yeah, American Idol.
Yeah, definitely even less than a gallery. But even before we ask perhaps the gallery where they are in the education, which is a word I despise, but at least in the
Promotion.
promotions of works on paper, we could probably also ask the artists, how many artists have elevated certain media to the public eye for the public to actually accept that? How many artists work with paper? But I would ask the same
I'm
thing.
stubborn.
Yes, I know, you're one, but not very many. But I would ask the same thing. How about the installations? For example, the works that were, the balloons, the black balloons that Trek once did.
But that's his fault. He wants more money. That's why he went to paint
No, but the
it.
thing is, okay,
There's no money in his balloons.
this is where I would ask the gallery, what is your position and what is your take in making the public enjoy this and actually want to take care of it? I think basically it's an entire system of how from the artist we bring the artwork and make each person in that system understand how to take care of it until it becomes really, really available to the public eye. So I think it's not just paper. I think it's a matter of the amount of
Materiality. I was talking about materiality.
Yes. So perhaps Trek, I think, has stopped doing very interesting installations because he knows that he himself cannot ensure
A stable life.
but he cannot assure that it will remain the same.
Yes, that's true. It's hard to maintain.
So that's why he doesn't want to bluff people and say, that you can buy this artwork. No, he doesn't want to be responsible for balloons that will never, exist again, etc. And he's very responsible in doing that.
Like I did one painting for this actor about this material. I use an organic material, and that is
An amber.
yeah, it's not an amber, but it's a dagtan po.
Resin.
Resin. I remember that series.
Para doon sa police.
Oo.
Resin work. Oh my God.
So, may maintenance kasi matawag yung actor sa gallery. O, Trek, pumunta ka dito kasi I need to
Fix your work.
But that's your work. But doesn't that happen to the works of Rauschenberg and Johns? They have to maintain it. So it happens. So
Pero yun
just
nga,
maintain it.
how much leeway will you give the artist's freedom? It can be a package, of maintenance.
Then they pay the artists.
That's not the problem of the
Then they pay the
It's
artists.
not the problem of the artist who says.
Actually, it's not. As Bobby Chabet would say,
Okay.
the older it
Then-
goes,
okay.
the more provenance it shows, the better.
Then I come back to that point where perhaps where the artist can help is to insist perhaps if Trek had insisted on making resin paintings up to now, then he would have perhaps found the better, I don't know, mix or technique to actually make it more long lasting or less maintenance, di ba? So, I return the question back to artists. Yes, I think any material is noble for anybody to use.
In my case, I also need to maintain my work from the client's home. Not only that the clients are concerned about my work, preserving it, but also the artist is asking the artist to maintain
Pero
it.
hindi pa dito dumadating yung responsibility ng artist na siguraduhin niya na yung material niya magtatagal.
But what if the artwork, like for me, the point of my work is for it to disappear eventually. I mean, it's not about permanence. What I'm trying to say, it's not about permanence. Like, we have to accept that it can only stay with us for so long, or I mean, we're gonna die. So why should art live?
Pero sa akin, it's also good when it comes to, I mean, it's also good that the collector has a personal relationship with the artist. So they can say, this is happening, I want you to look at it. And it does, kasi minsan the conservation ideas go wrong, right? Kasi si artist is not part of the conversation.
I wanna ask
Sa akin,
the question,
okay lang, but of course, within limits na, or I know naman Trek, I know that work there was some risk involved. There was parang hindi pa siya 100%. So,
Jonathan, your father, for example, definitely has works that haven't lasted beautifully forever, and I'm sure certain collectors have come back. What is your take on that? Do you actually, as a painter now, as an artist now, make sure that collectors won't go back to you and ask? Do you work or do you paint in a way that you're very conscious that you're sure that they won't come back knocking at your door 20 years from now asking what to do? How do we clean it? How do we fix it? Do you consciously make your work in a way that it will not happen?
She's married to
More business for them. Problem ni Lynn.
He's married to a conservative.
So iniisip mo ba yung longevity ng trabaho mo?
Because maybe that makes a point in an artist's life that you think about it. Maybe I'm not sure if I'm sa stage na again. I'm thinking about impermanence of work since people really question nga yung minsan na responsibility ng artist to do something with maybe materials na nag-last and so maybe.
No, but you.
I'm not sure if I'm setting up so kaya marami kasi kung sa medium na hindi talaga yung permanent, like really want to use them for what it is, for what they are. So like American wood or mga material like sabi yung resin, talagang very permanent din. So I think ganun talaga. So pati oil painting and acrylics, maybe in a few centuries, but will be fading. So, parang part of the process.
Okay, then I would bring in one other person into the picture, the collector.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that we have enough, probably too much, of artists around. We have too much art, too much artists. There are quite a number of gallerists already and consultants and middlemen to sell that, to transfer that, and bring that to museums and all of that. A lot of them who try to conserve it. But those who collect it, this is where I think that perhaps it's key that the gallerists are able to touch base, not just with any kind of collector, but with a crazy collector. Not only a crazy collector, but a rich collector, right? Because that's what you were saying a while ago. We need sponsors, right? But the thing is that it's not enough to have sponsors, but these sponsors have to be crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy so that they will not mind buying something that will disappear tomorrow.
Yeah.
Correction, I didn't say crazy. I said creative.
Creative.
Yeah, pero crazy kailangan din eh. I think crazy is important.
Well, crazy can be one of those elements in being creative.
O sige, so it's one of the same thing. Crazy and creative is like may topak. Ganun. Sana.
Well, because you can only be a good sponsor if you're scholarly with it. Because if you're not scholarly with your being creative, you're just gonna be junk.
Ay, no more na.
Okay. So, we're back with Silvana. Perhaps the last person last element that we'd like to talk about is the element of ownership of artworks, the collector. And I'd love to know if you've come across crazy collectors. If there are crazy rich Asians, there are probably crazy rich collectors.
There was maybe one. Yeah.
Who was willing to sponsor a creative endeavor outside the gallery or inside the gallery?
No. He was always Chinese, but extremely rich, but not that rich to be sponsor anybody. Only who he likes.
Yeah.
And so that's what he will sponsor.
So that's crazy enough, right?
Well, this artist was also very well known, and he has proven himself in many fields. And so I would say that it was not but it started by him when he was really at the beginning. But it was really quite creative and extraordinary in himself.
So if there are...
I wish there was crazy.
Yeah.
I wish.
So what we can say is, thanks to 100 wonderful, very creative artists, thanks to 10 very wonderful creative gallerists, thanks to one creative, crazy collector, the Manila art scene survives today.
I think it only survives for a certain type of artist. I think not all the artists benefit from this boom. You know?
Yes.
Definitely, works of paper are not selling. Photography is not selling.
Yes.
Installations are
Do I look it?
So it's only good for certain percentage, small percentage of artists.
I must say that is true. No matter how we fight, but let us say like Leroy, who's using also industrial material and found object.
But that's toxic.
Well, whatever it is,
It is.
he's able, no, he's working bamboo. He's doing what he's doing now, he's bamboo. I think he has also a found object. And then he's in the Biennales. I forgot where, but he's there. And in China, is in the Biennale in China? In Hawaii. I think, or maybe Hawaii, he's doing a big work. So, and then unfortunately, like Chuni is an artist that from early stage, he went back to the organic medium of nature. He rejected anything. And even when he did the sculpture in Sydney, he would make it with the tree that only had fallen during the typhoon. So he's another artist that is a purist in a way, Like he is always on the paper, and it's true that sometimes I ask him, "Oh, please, why don't you paint on canvas?"
Did we ever get to talk that way?
Yes.
I really have no problem with canvases, but may I ask, our artists are basically fatalistic. They're stubborn and they do what they want to do to death, till they die.
Yeah.
Now, as a promoter of the arts, how do you think could you insist to help artists with what they're promoting in their art against the collectors who are also so stubborn to collect as they wish, unmindful of being scholastic about what they are collecting? Or probably collecting for the purpose of investment, hoping that they could get 10 times more after 3, 4 years, 5 years. I mean,
the gallery, what the gallery can do, what we are doing like today, what we have been doing for 3 or 4 exhibit past, is to have artist dialogues and also some expertise dialogue. We even contacted Italy, like for his work. We contacted an Italian poetess, and she's also an artist. She did a lot of installation. She's who we send this video about where he lives in his work, and she has created the poetry. Then we are also trying to put social, like when we had Oni Volvedo, health social, because Oni somehow ahead of his time was able to perceive that the people were stressed and the people were aghast. And we came out with an exhibit, and we had specialists in healthcare, mental state. Because I said, when with the COVID, we are living inside the house, there is such a stress being, so we put up an exhibit. And it was Natalie who found one of the Badoy gun, to be able to speak about his mental health.
So in a way, the gallery is doing public programs, which is usually what would a museum do.
Yeah.
That's what we did twice. Yeah. We also talk with friends of the artists, like we contacted the Roses, the first and dining with her. One was in Australia, the other here, to give an insight of the artist, who's the artist, who he was really. So there was a dialogue,
Yes.
like here.
Keeping the relations between artists and other people in the industry.
Yes.
Not only practitioners, but related fields like writers. I think you've asked people to write about the artists that you represent.
Yeah, all the time. Yes,
And,
all the time.
I think even Jonathan has written about
Yes.
the artists who
Yes,
show
yes.
here.
And Ringo. Yes.
And Ringo as
We
well.
try to get the best. Actually, for me, the most is very essential if the writer is very friendly and knows the artist well. So she can really.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, because many times you can have somebody write about you, but he doesn't know you. But if the writer is really knows a lot about the work and the artist as a friend, as a human being, as everything, so all aspect comes out of the artwork of the artist. So this has been always.
It's
And
very more
then
introspective.
we send it. Well, now thanks to Natalie, we are trying to, because she knows. Before we used to go to newspaper to our critic like Alice Guillermo, who wrote a lot for me, and also books. I will ask her to write some books. So, and she was extremely well, prepared, and also other artists. So we try to educate the public as much as possible. But now it's easier. But also, will they open the computer? You see, will they listen to the thing?
This is where I'm saying perhaps that what a gallerist today is crucial for is to actually also stay in the scene. And Silvana has been here since the 70s. If the gallery one day just disappears, that is at least almost 50 years of history and 50 years forward that will be lost. So I think what's important is that the gallerist or the gallery or somebody who represents an artist remains there present in the art scene to keep the memory of the works alive. And as you said, who will look at these recordings we have today? People 50 years from now.
Yes.
Be around 50 years.
No, they will find that you say, look, these people did this.
You're on camera. You're on camera.
Is this often being done like, okay, since day one of the pandemic, how many of such sorties like this have you experienced? Okay,
like face to face, right? Usually it's on Zoom.
Okay, so that's one of those hindrances.
Yes, of course.
I think like Silvana is also an exception because not all of the galleries really go out of their way to educate the audience. Some it's just a matter of posting things on Facebook. That's what they do. So I think education is important, but I think we cannot expect it from all the galleries. Museums, that's really their mission. They really have to educate. But galleries, I think a lot of them here, they're really out there. It's a commercial business. They're not an educational institution. So we cannot really expect them to do the same way as what Silvana would do or what Boots would do at the Ateneo.
Even through Zoom, has this been happening since day one of pandemic?
I think there's a lot of Zoom things going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of Zoom going on. Yeah.
About the arts.
About art, if you want to
Keep engaged.
Yes.
That's why I must say that we are grateful for you physically coming to the gallery to prove that one day we have to get out of the house and actually go and see the work itself. Jonathan, I wish that one day you'll be able to also come out and not just see Trek's work, no, but
After Trek,
join us.
After Trek is Jonathan exhibit.
No way! Okay, great.
It's the next show.
Wonderful.
Is the next show.
Yeah. And I think it's very meaningful that we come together again physically and share a glass like we used to do in the 80s, which fed and nourished us. I think nothing has changed. Even, parang they were saying, diba, I think we haven't aged 2 years. We're just like, we were in a standstill and we're still 2 years younger today. Any last words?
Friends.
I'm very curious lang kung I really liked the title ng show ni Trek, so I was wondering how he came up with the title. Is yung ang ganda rin ng painting that are on show. Ngayon ko lang nabasa yung brief tungkol sa talk. I didn't know it was pala about mind games and mentors. So naalala ko lang si Trek when we were in UP. Parang siya yung the next big thing na lumabas doon. Kahit si Mr. Chabet, he was all praises for Trek ng time na yun eh. When I was there, when I was visiting, parang Sir Chabet was showing me his drawings eh. So parang, ang galing nito, si Trek, ganun siya. So parang part and parcel talaga ng mentoring yung nangyari between us, siguro si Trek, si RM, Katya, at saka si Ringo. Ganun. So, and you, Sandra, parang binamagit ka rin ni Sir Chabet ng parate. So pinapakita na yung drawings, sinasabi niya how yung talent ni Trek, yung gesture that was going on. Tapos, you were asking kanina kung ano yung abstraction sa akin. So, I think it's more, it's both siguro yung yung mind ng artist, pati yung gesture that goes on dun sa canvas. So, mas more kesa lang sa form. So siguro si Trek, ganun siya. Parang he gets what's around him and regurgitates or synthesizes kung ano yung mga images around him. Like nga, nakita ko sa IG, parang stalker ako ni Trek sa IG. Nakikita ko na he's biking around yun yung ano na yun, main thing, parang yung mga landscapes ng Bulacan, ganyan. So nakita ko na ngayon sa mga works niya, parang meron gano'n na organic feel sa work niya. Ayun, so naalala ko parati siya yung Andy Warhol noong time sa UP when he comes in sa UP Fine Arts. Naka-shade siya na parang rockstar talaga eh. So, ayun, so time na yun. Di ba? Ikaw yung Warhol na. Alala ko yun. Kasama ka namin sila Ronald. Yeah. Is ko lang yung parting shot dun sa like sabi ni Ringo, yung it's yung duty ng museums to educate. And so, I think yung installation art, pati yung conceptual art is gaining ground sa audiences lately. So, and naisip ko offhand yung installation work ni Nilo. Parang Pinto Museum bought it eh. So, parang ang laking step for, I'm not sure kung ano yung talagang rationale nila for buying it, if it's for entertainment lang or yung spectacle ng work, but it's still there. So, meron silang ginagawang steps. Yung Matchbox work, I don't know if you've seen it. So, binili ng Pinto ata yun. So, which one?
So, we have 2 crazy collectors.
So far. So, kahit si Dr. Kuan, even if yung bias niya is for yung, like, social realism of that kind, di ba? So, hindi siya masyadong sympathetic maybe for what modern work. I'm sorry for saying this, I might be stepping on toes. Pero parang gano'n lang yung nakita ko. So, he's taking steps na to see what's there. And then, so, although, tapos po si Nilo na, sabi na hindi siya masyadong favorable than how the work was installed. Baka meron pa mga ibang options. Sabi na he sees na meron pa rin bias yung how they operate, yung Pinto, yung curatorship ng Pinto Gallery. It's still, hindi pa eh. Parang wala pa dun eh. But sana, siguro yung wish that someone meron parang pansa. Tama ba? Merong Italian collector from the 80s. He was buying ephemeral works, conceptual art. Count Panza, parang he's a count. So parang kinakwento rin nila Chobet doon, tsaka nila Nilo, ganyan. So, ayun. That's it. So, congrats, kay Trek. Idol. Thanks for having me here. It's really a pleasure to see you again. Sila Katya, sila Ringo.
Thank you,
John.
One more question.
Okay. Yeah. Which one? No, I remember before nagpunta kami sa Zambales, sila Trek tsaka nila Katya sa beach ni Ronald eh. So, it's been with them. So it's great. So next. That's it.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the wonderful closing remarks. No need for any more words. Let's enjoy the evening. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Have a good rest of the evening. Take care.
Thank you.